Welcome to South of Left Field. My name is Jimmy, and what I would like to discuss in this particular video is a little bit about the journey that got me to, well, the title of this series, South of Left Field. I mentioned earlier episode that I grew up on a farm in the rural South, deep in the rural South. And as you would expect, I inherited a lot of opinions and a lot of philosophies, if you will, about life. And these things, of course, began to fail me. Particularly, the point at which I really began to turn away from the conservative philosophy that I had been raised in was a point of crisis in my life where I was married, I had 2 children, and through poor decision on my part trying to change careers, I ended up unemployed. Now this crisis was pretty severe. Even though I do have an engineering degree, it turns out that even an engineering degree is still subject to supply and demand. And there was plenty of supply and no demand for my particular skill set. In the end, I found myself in a position that I had always looked down on from the conservative mindset, and that is relying on food stamps to see to it that my family was fed. Yes, I finally did find some kind of a job working at a Walmart. But even those decades ago, working at a Walmart, you couldn't take care of a family of 4 with 2 kids. There just was not enough income to be had. And so I found myself in a position, a condition that I had always dismissively looked down on as being dependent on welfare, charity. Needless to say, the trauma of this, loss of my home, moving into a mobile home, these were all things that opened my eyes in a very real sense to the fact that American society is in fact very class conscious. I had been class conscious and somehow managed to be unaware of it, which seems ridiculous, but nonetheless is true. I had vehemently argued with a cousin through years in college when we went to college together. Her position was one of very liberal position and having social safety nets. My argument was the classic conservative position that, well, you can always find a job and you can always make it, and people who have to rely on welfare just get lazy and they stay there. Now, I worked every year of my life since I was 14 till I retired. Lazy is one thing I don't consider myself to be. Even in high school, I worked nights at a truck stop on weekends. Make money, try to go to college. So to find myself in this position where I had to rely on a safety net, I began to see it from a new perspective. My understanding of what it meant to have fallen from grace, if you will, began to change me and began to change my vision of society. And I realized that most of the people who rely on these safety nets aren't there by choice. Pretty well everybody I encountered, everybody I worked around, I mean, we all wanted to do better. We all wanted to work our way a little further up the ladder. There were not very many people who were just laid back, comfortable, and says, yeah, I don't have medical. I mean, yes, there's an insurance policy, but I can't afford to even buy aspirin under it. And I'm happy just sitting here low rung. I really didn't find a whole lot of people who were happy. I didn't meet anybody really that wouldn't jump at the chance of a better position, a better job, a better lifestyle. But the problem was the job market did not provide that. That was a second eye-opener for me. To understand how completely powerless somebody who is looking for a job is. And in many cases, people who have jobs are powerless. Sometimes they don't realize it. I didn't really realize it. I thought I wouldn't have a problem finding a job. I was wrong. A whole lot of people here in America have a problem finding a job, even back then. And the circumstances are worse today than they were those decades ago when I was still a young man. Well, from my point of view. So the conservative philosophy began to fall apart around me. I realized that this social support, this social safety net, was essential to keep food on the table, keep a roof over the head, provide at least something of a decent life for my children, if nothing else. And I just had to swallow my pride and work hard and just keep looking. And this went on for quite some time. Unemployment was not something you can subsist on. There is a myth that there are a large number of people who, if welfare is available to them and they can scrape by, they'll happily sit there on welfare. Well, there are some people like that. I mean, hell, we are a country of 300 plus million people. You're going to find people of every type. But what I realized when I was down there working shoulder to shoulder with people who were trapped like I was at the time is that the conservative view of people struggling to get up off the bottom is biased, nearsighted, and just downright wrong. People want a better life. Most people want a better education. Most everybody is looking for a way to improve their lives. Working at Walmart isn't it, but it's the largest employer in the country. This tells me that the corporations, they are not out to provide good jobs. You know, it really came home to me that the sole purpose behind a corporation was to make a profit. You could get fired from a Walmart if you accidentally put too much time on a week. They monitored our time rigidly and disciplined ruthlessly. I mean, even if you didn't want to go over on your time, Lord help you if you did. And they smack you just as hard if you came up short. They kept a real tight leash. Now, there's something humiliating about being treated like that. Needless to say, the vision of the ideal conservative world fell apart. A lot of things about the conservative world fell apart. I understood finally that one of the fruits of conservatism is a lack of education for the general population, because while I was graced with the ability to go to college because it was a state-supported institution, state support has been largely withdrawn by conservatives. Conservatives don't want to have the upper class or the corporations pay for education for Americans. Now, this weakens America. You know, I've said before, America is its citizens. America is not its businesses. America is not its government. America is not its wealthy upper class. America can rebuild all of those things as long as the citizens are still here. You can wipe away the government, the army, and the upper 10%, and guess what? The 90% that are left are going to carry on, and we're going to rebuild, because that's what people do when they're given a chance. What I came to realize is America is in fact a class society. When my son came home practically in tears because all of his good friends, when things were doing well and we were living in a nice house, they turned their backs on him when they found out that we'd moved into a trailer park. Lord have mercy. He suddenly became garbage. And they didn't want anything to do with him. They didn't even want to be seen with him. They avoided him, and it hurt him. It taught him a valuable lesson, just like it taught me a valuable lesson. We are too much given to looking at one another from the perspective of what they have and what we have, rather than anything else, and too little time looking at the value of human life in general. This vision of people as a commodity to be branded by what they own, judged by the size of their wallet. This is a very shallow existence, but this is the conservative world, the conservative authoritarian world. And this is what I am so saddened to see. America is becoming more and more. It's all about what the upper class want to do, and the fact that they don't want the lower classes, people like me, people like you, people who might be listening to this, they don't want us to have a voice. They don't want us to have power. I mean, you have to understand, a corporation is an authoritarian structured system. I've never heard of a liberal corporation. There are very few of them, and usually over time they become very authoritarian. Conservatism is authoritarian. Religion is authoritarian. I mean, the whole point behind religion is, here's a book, this is all you need to know, don't ask any questions, shut up and obey, pay your tithe, or go to hell. That's about as authoritarian as it gets. Democracy is not an authoritarian system. Democracy is based on the idea that people have the ability and the right to voice and give opinions, to vote for laws, to vote for representation. This is what democracy is supposed to be all about. And a democracy cannot thrive in a poorly educated society. It's one reason that education is under such consistent attack by the conservative political agenda. And here's the cute thing. Education and social safety networks have not fared well under the Democrats either. Anyway, I'll pause right there because that's the first part. This is me leaving right field. And part 2, I'll be coming back to talk about why I didn't stop very long and left field. And then finally, there will be a little discussion about why center field didn't fit either. Folks, please come join me south of left field. Like and share, and thank you for your time.